Good morning, everyone. I'm Deborah McLeod. I'm so happy to see all the old friends and new faces here for our talk this morning, and it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers. It's an honor to have Bennett Miller's provocative, groundbreaking exhibition in the gallery, and an appropriate start to the new year of great unknowns. Bennett is a highly acclaimed, Academy Award-nominated film director who in recent years has turned his formidable acumen with imagery and astute understanding of artificial intelligence to the still image. The prints you see around you are not photographs. They are created using the very first iteration of DALL-E, the AI image generator. These mysterious and beautiful, familiar but never before seen images address our changing world, stir our memories, and challenge our imaginations to puzzle them out. We use the words cutting edge a lot in contemporary art, but in Bennett's case, we truly are at the precipice. Michael Govan, CEO and Wallis Annenberg Director of LACMA, has been changing the landscape of our town since his arrival in 2006. Michael has radically expanded LACMA in order to reach more of our citizens with satellite spaces and ambitious public programming. He has commissioned and acquired city-defining artworks for LACMA that have become our logos and our ethos. Two visionaries. This should be good. Gentlemen?
Thank you, Deborah. Bennett, I only knew you previously when we were talking as a filmmaker, and you've made this huge leap into our visual arts world, which we're going to talk about today, which is super exciting, so thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So I thought it would be good if we could begin our conversation for those who aren't as familiar with your process here, your new process, because it's a new process, a new medium, which we can talk about how these are made. Then we can get to what they are. But so these are made with the first, I think it's called DALL-E 2, but one of the very first AI large language model image generators. So most people are probably familiar by now, at least with ChatGPT and other large language model text generators. There are also image generators. They work a little bit the same way, that there's lots of data they've read, lots of images, and then you kind of talk to them and coax out, and new images are produced. But it's also worth saying that these images are not one shot. It's not like you just put something in and ask for something in return, but these are labored over. I just want to say that because I already know, not only are they labored over, but now that I know you in this installation, I think you rearranged the installation at least 20 times. So there's a lot of humanity. I just want to big red flag, and a lot of human thinking that goes into these. The first thing one might think of is they're black and white-ish, sepia-toned a little bit, and they do remind one of early photography. They're a little bit blurry, like late 19th century or early photography. But of course, in early photography, you needed a lot of light. You'd have to have your camera very still, and you would take a very long exposure. So the idea of capturing motion is totally anathema to that early photography, the invention of photography. We have images that are, I would say, surreal in the sense that they're not exactly something you would take in a photograph. So there are certainly clues right away. This is not what there's a lot of expectations that are dashed, and you have to reassemble your perception around them. So maybe you could start by talking a little about that process of teasing out an image and those basic choices of how you teased these images into being.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think it makes sense to do a little technical explanation because when I speak with people, this is the big question of what is this, how are they made? If I asked you to imagine a pink tennis ball, it happens. You just see it, right? How did that happen? These large language models model themselves after some crude understanding of what a neural network is. It's an attempt to model the way the brain works. There's no copying and pasting. It's not like this is based on any given photograph. What DALL-E or any LLM is going to bring to it, hopefully, is what feels like an imagination. You can ask this thing to imagine different variations, and it will endlessly generate variations from this deep, deep, deep well of images from which it can hallucinate. There's a point where you can imagine what it's going to see. And that's when it gets really interactive and it really feels collaborative.
There's a lot of relationships between language and image in art history. I mean, I can immediately, you can think about in this image surrealism. The famous surrealist idea about as surprising as I hope I get this right, as the chance meeting of an umbrella and a sewing machine on a dissecting table. I don't know if that's right, but it's about that this surrealist trope of something so weird and surprising. And so the surrealists, we have our Magritte painting at LACMA, this is not a pipe, we're really interested in that dialogue between poetry, language, and image. So it's fair to say, and I think it's one of the things that I've gleaned from this and the conversation, that we're not seeing any writing, and you sometimes say you don't like word, you have struggle with words, but this is a dialogue between language and image, isn't it? And that idea of trying to create something surprising to you, that you might think is surprising to the audience, are key driving energies behind it? I mean, you're having a discussion with this thing.
Yeah, it's figuring out what words mean to it.
I understand, but like with people.
Yeah, exactly.
When we have a discussion, we're trying to find out what that word means to you, so I rephrase it in a new way.
Yeah.
Because you see that word differently.
Yes, exactly. What the words do is basically corral anything it identifies with that word. So if I say whale, you can imagine every variety of photograph or image that exists of a whale. And then what the thing does is it just throws random pixels onto the screen, just random. And then based on the images that you have corralled with words, it looks around and says, are there any patterns that resonate with, those images? And it will say, yeah, these, and then it will wipe away the rest, and then it will throw more up there, and then it will see, yes, this is beginning to fulfill some likeness. An image has never been made before, but that's how it gets there. So the words basically, cordon off the data set.
So you're looking for, so I thought about when looking at these, I know you mostly as a filmmaker, but in filmmaking, and I don't make films, but I've made little ones, you have lots of things and you have to, I did do a little editing, you have to re-edit and re-edit and re-edit till you get the spirit of it. So it seems to me a little bit that this process of saying yes, no, editing, and adjusting isn't wildly different than the process you've known making films, right? And then you're trying to tease out things you like and images that have meaning to you. I mean, one can notice and I did see that as like a whale tail, and there's the cover image for the advertising for the show, which feels like the body of a whale sitting on a stage, which has that surrealist sense that there's a little person in front, there's a stage, a proscenium stage, and you have this body of a whale. So use that image, it was chosen for the front. What was it about that got you excited? Like that you're saying like, it's close, it's not close, here it is, this has meaning to me.
All of this kind of emerged out of several years of really immersing myself in what's happening in technology, and had been working on a documentary for 5 years, which is presently frozen, but thinking about AI and the fast emerging powers that are going to change the landscapes of all of our lives for sure. And this image is the whale's a little bit about, I see it's like human intelligence. Like you have this little anonymous thing, but humans have intelligence. We could pull a whale out of the ocean. That's incredible. It's really, it's still, given everything that we've done and splitting the atom and everything else, that is meaningful. But what do you do with the intelligence? How do humans use their intelligence?
I read that image. I don't know if it's fair. I read that image a little bit too. You have this giant whale. It is like that phrase, the elephant in the room, is that this whole show is about the elephant. There's a big thing happening, changing. We're going to be remeasuring, rethinking the thing about technology, right, is that it remeasures ourselves.
Yeah.
It's constantly redefining what's human as well as advancing its own agenda. So I know that's a rumination that you have a lot through this documentary you've been making. I mean, you've probably spoken with more of the leaders of our time in technology. They're going to shape our regular lives than anyone I know, because I learned a little about this documentary. So I'm super interested in your own conclusions and feelings about this elephant in the room, about these cataclysmic changes.
Right. The film itself, if it makes it out, and I hope it does not have a thesis, and I personally do not have a thesis. It's an ongoing thing, and are we ready for the powers we're creating for ourselves? This is where I could discover some opinions. No, of course not. We're not qualified to manage the powers that we do have, and what we're beginning to have accessible to everybody has to be acknowledged as unknowable. Like the consequences are unknowable. It's a very peculiar moment in history. I don't think any other period can be said to be similar in that nobody could credibly tell you what the world is going to look like in 20 years. My feelings about it is that there are no adults in the room. You can't really control it. This is a touchy conversation too, like the determinism and whatever. But it has a nature. It is a kind of an evolution. Not kind of, it is an evolution. And I think these images are sort of imbued. I mean, to me, they feel imbued with this sense of like a liminal state between eras, like eras do end. As I'm using this like unfathomable power, I became interested in, what's been lost, like what is beyond the reach of memory. As technology and the forces of history sort of erase things, there is a tendency that I discovered while making this documentary that anything that happened like more than 5 minutes ago is irrelevant and expired, not interesting, not important. And my sense is that that's not true at all, and I do wonder about that. I do think about, on this continent, the number of tribes that have vanished along with their cultures, languages. It's a crazy thought that like languages can go extinct and nothing's known about these people, their languages, nothing is known about their experience of living. Nothing's known except that they existed. And for me, I think I'm just intuitively reaching for something that we can't understand, maybe as just objects to remind ourselves or, to awaken that sense of what's lost, made with a technology that is going to render us, as distant as these things.
I think it's hard not to see in this, again, you're choosing a historical mode. which is not quite nostalgic in these because it's so clear that they're also modern. There's I don't know, there's a touch of sadness in that, or a sense of loss. Art historians always love to point out that everything's always been done, or they take you backwards. And our photo genius at LACMA, Britt Salveson, will correct me, but the origins of photography are not what we think of photography now. There's a big debate about the truth of photography, but like a photograph is true. But actually, in early photography, all artists were cutting and pasting and rearranging and creating a kind of pictorial imagination. And I guess one of the things that leaps out with these is that in a way they're a kind of return. I mean, in the photography took on through the 70s and other times that idea of realism, and you would show the frame, and that's exactly what happened, photojournalism. But of course there's that strain of the imagination, and the imagination is how you ponder both loss and opportunities. So it seems like there's one of the things I like about the process and the images is that you're returning that sense of imagination and wondering, because that's the only way you face the uncertain future, right?
I don't think I could say it better, Michael. Yeah. Yes. I wouldn't even know how to add to that. Yeah. You can use the thing's imagination to get there, but it is a manipulation, to render exactly what you just described.
Yeah, and I do think that, I mean, now that I've spent some time with them and you, and I know about this documentary, there is this big wondering about, it is the elephant in the room about what our future is in this field. So I know this is, in a way, I don't know if it's fair to say, your meditation on those questions of what that future holds, kind of investigating it and poking it and probing it with your language and the images you're interested in.
Yeah. But not necessarily looking for an answer. It's hard to get far enough back and look at what's happening to feel, it's hard to feel what is happening. It's just too big, meaning that transformations that are clearly upon us. I think I sense often a feeling of anxiety that's sort of undescribed amongst many people, that has something to do with a knowledge that's not totally faced, that the world is changing so fast, and this is not a theme that's gone on forever. It took
So are you worried the world's changing too fast? I mean, there is a slowdown. Look at the slowness of these images and their sort of frozen, blurry quality. Is that can I read that into you? A worry about that?
I'm not worried for different reasons. Life is unpredictable. The world is dangerous, chaotic, even without this stuff. But if it's a meditation, it's a meditation on I don't know. And it's like what we don't know. And this is way more literal than I ever imagined I would be. But it's kind of a eulogy. It's like a feeling for something that you can't even know. The lives and the consciousness that have arisen and passed away, as different as we all think we are right now, even in this country politically and everything, that's, I think, a lot smaller than just the history of human consciousness.
You've gone from film, you've now made these images that are your meditation, I'll call them, on this. Tell me about the future a little bit. Like, does this take you somewhere in your mind? Has it prompted you to think about what you might do next, either in film or photography? Or what have you learned, I guess, from the experience of this series of work and interaction that will take you forward?
I've learned that, later in life that something new can still happen. It's a very unexpected thing, Any new medium opens up new pastures to explore. So whether it's like watercolors, watercolors can do something that no other medium can.
That's what you're going to do next.
Watercolors?
I'm
No,
sure
no,
of it now.
no. I'm saying it's still. I like something special about these to me is that they were made with the first really interactive algorithm, which came from OpenAI, which is DALL-E, and you can't go back there already. Like, the data sets are changed, the algorithms are changed. It would be very hard to make this. Another thing that's happening is that these LLMs are becoming increasingly customizable. And so one just emerged, and it's a little bit of a project, but just creating my own data set.
So that is the future. I mean, that's the present, actually, not the future, is that now what we're doing is curating data sets that reflect our personality or knowledge. We're doing that at LACMA so that you can get out of it something that's more like things generated from your personality or frame of reference would probably be a better idea. So that's pretty exciting.
But I have to say, even without that, you never want to lose the kind of random element. That's a big part of it. You don't want to use this to just control something. It has to surprise you. Part of the medium is, even if it's an irksome word to some, it is imaginative. This is kind of a director's medium, and that you have a lot of talent around you which you can provoke and harness, direct, guide. And if you're not surprised by something that your collaborators are doing, you're exercising too much control. So that's sort of what's magic about it,
I think that's a perfect moment to stop but not stop. I now know enough about your restless, inquiring mind to be looking forward to your the next iteration of your thinking, whether it's in film or whatever medium. And I think I just want to say thank you for opening vistas of imagery and thought for us here in this moment. Thank you for being in LA with the show. Thank you, Gagosian, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much.